So welcome, our beloved, brilliant brother Tapfuma. We so appreciate your
Thank
consistent
you.
leadership and solidarity. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who said freedom or death, all those whose bones lie at the bottom of the transatlantic, all those who toiled without compensation or compassion. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, my beloved brother, please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work.
Amazing, amazing. So firstly, thank you so much, Victor, for creating this platform, and highlighting the work that we are doing as fellow diasporans to advance really, but it's obviously a very nuanced, beautiful region, but creating the platform to highlight that and to showcase that. So yes, my name is Tapfuma Musewe. I'm the executive director of Afrifursa. Fursa means opportunities in Kiswahili and Arabic. So our focus is to actually shift the narrative here in Canada around Africa by highlighting opportunities for equitable exchange. So we move away from extractive relationships and single-sided relationships to something that is equitable and represents all stakeholders at the table. I also work in sustainable finance right now. And so I'm really focused on helping small and growing businesses in low and middle income countries raise finance for their entrepreneurial, socially driven pursuits.
Ashe, Manasi Papa. Thank you so much for your leadership, my brother. So my next question, what's inspiring you right now in your work? What has you curious or what's keeping you up at nights?
Yeah, that's a great question. So maybe I'll start with what keeps me up at night. Like working with these entrepreneurs in the missing middle. So they're either too big for microfinance, but too small for a commercial bank loan, for instance. Working with them to help them get the finance that they require to either for working capital, so to keep their business moving, or to grow, for expansion, and realizing that the whole funding and investing landscape is, especially in Africa, is typically 80% driven by foreign investment, foreign funding, especially in the tech and innovation space. It might be different in other spaces. So understanding there's a real mismatch between the capital that's supplied and the capital that's needed. So this is a really deep challenge that many incredible people like yourself and others are really focused on trying to solve. And that's challenging for me because I work with these entrepreneurs and they do incredible things. They support their families and their communities, and ultimately their nations to grow. So that's a challenge. What inspires me is there's so much about the continents that I just don't know. And it's always inspiring when I come across entrepreneurs, when I come across people who are building businesses that are so innovative and are so necessary. So they're not innovating just for the sake of innovation, but to solve like deep, intractable issues, whether it's access to power or sanitation, education, telehealth, emergency medical responses. I come across these incredible entrepreneurs who have the drive and the grit in a resource-constrained environment to build something that's beautiful, and I think has a lot of longevity. And I'm just always inspired by those stories.
Ashe, that's incredible. Thank you so much for that context. Really appreciate your leadership and all the work that you're doing for so many. My next question, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work, and what are some of the approaches you and your colleagues are taking to overcome these challenges and barriers?
Sure. So because I'm based in Canada, and my work around facilitating investments, flows and innovation exchange, a lot of it I would say is dependent on good policy, because I think it's the way Canada operates. Canadians want, the confidence of government policy. We, from the private sector, also want to know we work in an enabling environment. But one of the challenges we have is that there's no coherent, intentional Canada-Africa economic engagement strategy or framework. And yet we're the mining capital of the world. So our exposure in Africa, as far as some of these industries, I would say legacy industries are concerned, is massive. But us as diasporans, when we want to, invest in a tech company or, bring African companies to Canada, or exchange, you know, we find that there's very little support. There's a very, we're very fragmented. So the support ecosystem is not coherent. And I think there's really a disconnect between, the fact that we get so much resource out of the continent that fuels the tech industry, so to speak, but very little support for African diasporans in particular that want to engage the continent from Canada.
I couldn't agree more. When I look at some of the other strategies, the Indo-Pacific strategy and others, it's night and day in comparison to the strategy. And when you look at Canada as a G7 nation, we're actually doing the least in Africa, but still there's a lot of extraction. So I think all those points are really important. And I think that the diaspora has to really find ways and means to engage Global Affairs Canada, Export Development Canada, EDC, and really build that bridge and say, listen, like there's Black businesses that need to be export ready. We need to build those pipelines because
100%.
So I couldn't agree more with you. And once again, I just applaud your leadership and the remarkable work that you're doing that I believe will lead to positive and sustainable policy and infrastructure developments between continents in Canada. So my next question, do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work?
Yeah, so you've actually touched on a few of them. So as far as investment is concerned, we're so there's really three priorities. So it's in facilitating investment flow, innovation exchange, and policy development. So starting with the investment flows, we know a lot, probably most, I would dare say all, the VC and sort of PE investors in Africa, and also high net worth individuals, who are really engaged, particularly again in tech and innovation, because Afrifursa is focused on that. So my priority there is to continue to build the narrative, because again, it's a very fragmented story where even some of the VCs don't know each other, and so we brought them together through our platform. That's one. In the innovation exchange, a lot of it is about supporting Canada-based African diasporans who are building businesses. So some have actually relocated or actually created a headquarters in Canada in order to grow in that market, access resources, or grow into the American market. They feel like it's part of their journey that's important, and we want to see these entrepreneurs supported, in the ecosystem. So there's also kind of the other way of working with really Canada-based, again, entrepreneurs and diasporans who want to trade outside of Canada. So we are working currently with EDC on a program that will promote Black exporters and prepare them for execution of international trade strategy. And this is a critical piece for most businesses in order for them to just grow, grow their revenue and just grow as a business. So we're leading that as far as tech and innovation again is concerned. And in terms of policy, we engage directly with our members of parliament, and at federal level and also at municipal level and a little bit at provincial level around engagement with Africa broadly. So we're really pushing for the development of that Canada-Africa economic cooperation strategy in a way that reflects the priorities of the continent and the diaspora.
That's incredible. Well done, my brother. Well done. So
Thanks.
My second last question, what is your ultimate goal and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
Yeah, so firstly, nothing about us without us. So, when it comes to mining, where we have a lot of exposure in Africa and anything else, when it comes to Global Affairs Canada, and our representation on the continent, when it comes to all these things, I want to see African diasporans represented. I want to see us there at these tables, at the decision-making tables. That's a big one, representing, our priorities. That's a big one. Another one is that, again, this massive continent that holds the most potential, and really is the future of the globe in many ways. What happens with Africa will determine what happens across the world. I want to see that prioritized in policy. And yeah, I just, I think another big piece would be just the visas. So, just the sort of loosening up of restrictions around just the exchange, so the flow of people, and ideas and resources, between Canada, and the continent.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Thank you so much for your visionary leadership, my brother. But more importantly, all the actionable insights that are just no-brainers, but for some reason or another, there's just a lack of will, not skill, but will to make some of these things happen. So once again, I just appreciate your consistency, your diligence, your tenacity. My last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah, sure. So one of them is that, again, I think it's incumbent on each of us to make sure that we're represented. And one way we can do that in Canada is by leaning on our members of parliament, and MPPs as well, for representation and for ensuring that our priorities as African diasporans, are heard and understood, and are prioritized themselves. So I think that's one call to action. I would also say, it's really important for us as diasporans to not be so fragmented. So, know who your people are, and the people that you're aligned with, know your community, and engage, because there's a few of us, there's quite a few of us who are leading and creating space, for other, fellow diasporans to really prosper and to do their thing. There's quite a few of us, and I think this only works if we collaborate. So we have a platform, and there's other platforms, again, that I'd encourage people to participate in, and keep building.
Ashe, my brother, I appreciate you. You represent us well. You make our ancestors proud. I'm
Thank you.
honored to call you my beloved brother. Yeah, and I always I'm looking forward to my sons hearing this interview. You know what I mean? And yeah, just give thanks for
Wonderful.
authenticity,
Yeah.
and your consistent integrity around how you approach this work. Once again, you make our ancestors proud. And as always at Setsi, we close this interview, this conversation, the way we began, by acknowledging, giving thanks to our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards, the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate you.
Blessed. Thanks, Victor.